campus of Xavier University. WBOK 1230 AM. Go. An Equity Media Station.
The Good Morning Show is brought to you by University Medical Center. Visit them online at umcno.org.
I'm Mike Island, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. 3 Delaware police officers are in the hospital after being shot Wednesday night. The shooting happened in Wilmington as the officers were responding to a call for service. They were taken to the hospital in stable condition. The much-loved Bud Billiken Parade on Chicago's South Side is coming back this year. The parade was canceled last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It will return August 15th with new safety measures, including COVID testing, wellness checks, social distancing practices, and possible mask requirements. President Biden is putting COVID vaccinations front and center with a national month of action. Speaking at the White House Wednesday, Biden said the accelerated U.S. vaccination program has been a great success since he took office. He added that while this summer is looking to be very different than last summer, he said the fight against the coronavirus isn't over. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Island from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
The best conversation in town is on WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Wake up, New Orleans. Wake up. 4 minutes past the hour. Man, it's Thursday, man. We done made it past Hump Day. Man, been a great week. You're still here.
Mm-hmm.
I am too. Frank, a.k.a. Lee Hardy, the early bird team still together. You and Reagan still doing it. Wake up show. We got our listening audience out there, man. Great shows, man. Wonderful guests and information. To be here at the historic campus of Xavier University, man. One of the leading educational institutions in America. It's just an honor to be here. Dr. Verrett and his team. We're going to talk to Dr. Daniel Sarpong, man. You're talking about a sharp brother, man.
Yeah.
Dr. Sarpong is awesome. I've been on panels, talked to him before.
Yeah, I was trying to get a feel for him
y'all
a
were
few
going
minutes ago.
professor to professor.
Yeah, I was getting a feel for what, for his direction and for what he know.
We'll take the midday shit. Man, we got a great show lined up, man. Dr. Daniel Sarpong, tough brother, director of the Center for Minority Health and Health Disparities Research and Education. He is an endowed chair of health disparities and biostatistics professor right here at Xavier University. Then at 8 o'clock, one of our contributors, Councilman Jay Banks. We'll be back.
When it happens in our community, our listeners speak up.
They need to look into them cousins, who they've done something to. Because the little young 14-year-old boy, their cousin probably broke out and ran. And the little 14-year-old boy stood up there like, what the hell's going on? Care who it like when you said that yesterday, when you don't care if it's your cousin, they out there wrong doing something wrong, your cousin just wrong.
I went uptown, me and the wife, last Wednesday, and stuff. People are eating and walking around with no masks, and you walking around stupid, and everybody's blaming Mag Cantrell. So what's she supposed to do? I mean, she got handcuffs on her, and she's doing the best she can to save your life, and you acting stupid.
Speaking truth. I'm the truth. Power. WBOK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about.
This weather update is brought to you by LNR Security.
Well, it is a mostly cloudy, mild, humid, and calm morning across southeast Louisiana. We've got some coastal rainfall out there, a few spotty showers, mainly down here on the south shore, where we also have some patchy, dense fog. This afternoon, I'm expecting some mostly cloudy, kind of mild and humid conditions. Temperatures will be rising into the mid to the upper 80s. About a 60% chance of showers and storms in the forecast for today, and rain chances go down just a little bit tomorrow. From the WDSU Weather Center, this is WDSU meteorologist Damon Singleton.
We're hiring. L&R Security is still here and keeping the community safe. Join a team of dedicated, strong, and responsible people ready to guard. With over 41 years of service, L&R Security understands the importance of keeping everyone safe, especially employees. We are hiring armed and unarmed guards. With comparative pay and available hours, L&R is the best choice for employment. So call 504-943-3191 to set up your interview today. That's 504-943-3191.
Visitors are coming back to New Orleans, helping us restart our economy, helping us bring back one of our city's most important industries, hospitality. Restaurants and hotels all over New Orleans are now hiring, offering good wages and opportunities for career advancement. Be a part of something special. Consider a career in hospitality and help us bring New Orleans back better than ever. Learn more at neworleans.com/jobs.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
This is wellness advocate and host of Change Your Water, Change Your Mind, Pastor David Patan. Every week, I'm educating you on how to be healthier by making simple changes to your diet. So join me every Saturday at 1 p.m. and let's get better together. Only on WBOK 1230. What New Orleans is talking about.
Education for Liberation has a new day and time. Join Dr. Adrian Dixon and Dr. Maria Velasquez every Saturday at 2 p.m. Same provocative conversation, but now on Saturdays. Tune in and call in at 504-582-9422.
The best conversation in town is on WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
We're back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. 25 minutes past the hour here on the historic campus of Xavier University, man, on Dr. Norman Francis Parkway, right here on Xavier South. In partnership with Equity Media, WBOK, OT, the Prof, and everybody out there, man. What this lovely view, though, isn't it, Prof?
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, yeah. It really is. That person that was watching you last week, not there, not there this week.
No, I'm sitting kind of behind this wall.
Yeah, you have.
I feel a little bit more protected.
You have repositioned. Yes. You were very vulnerable.
I was vulnerable at the other studio with my back towards the window. Yeah, I feel protected.
Yeah, Prof has made himself a target in many cases.
Me, I think you made me a target. Yeah.
Well, somebody got to tell a story.
Yeah, I don't want to be a martyr.
Somebody has to talk about the legend, right? Right, Tom? No doubt about it, man. What a blessing. Once again, he's been with us before, been in panel discussions with him before. I think one of the great intellectuals in this town. And also, doctor and professor right here, Prof, at Xavier University. He's the director of the Center for Minority and Health Disparities in Research and Education, endowed chair of Health Disparities and Biostatistics professor at Xavier University, Dr. Daniel Sarpong. Doc, welcome back, man.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver, for having me this morning.
So Doc, you've been one of the scientists, one of the intellectuals and leaders, and especially when you talk about health disparities, the disparities in many areas, but especially with these vaccination rates. We see a lot of talk now. First, the talk was about the suspicion amongst African Americans because of our history with race in medicine, reluctance to even want to take the vaccine. Then there was a push. I know I've been on television, several commercials, take the shot, many others. Dr. Ferdinand, many experts have been said with Prof and I. Prof took the shot, made it public so people could see it. I did. But now there seems to be kind of like a wall in this. Talk to us about where we are now with vaccination rates in real time right now, especially for African Americans.
Well, I think in real time, I think that the early onset, initially there was a lot of hesitancy. And in the summer, we organized a number of focus groups and key informant interviews. And in those interviews, the community taught us and really laid it clear that there were some concerns about the vaccine. One, it was developed too quick compared to other things where the discovery had been very high. They also felt that there were a lot of conspiracy theories out there that weren't sure. There were a lot of the historical mistrust. But even in the midst of all of that, we all are aware in the summer there was a lot of social unrest. Injustices were very clear in the minds of everybody else. So I think all of those things compounded in terms of how we view this pandemic. One would have thought that in the midst of pandemic, you wouldn't have George Floyd killed, you wouldn't have all those social unrest, because we as a country have always come together in times of crisis. Well, this summer was a little different, but it also highlighted some of the social inequalities that still exist in our communities. But I think what happened was after with education and the messaging getting out, the older people were more receptive. And remember that we unfold the vaccine in phases. It was first the more elderly people, more vulnerable people, the health providers, and so on and so forth. So the younger group was sort of the last group. They were the most hesitant group. But I think partly, too, it's all based also on our messaging, because we messaged COVID as if that different people were at risk at a different level. I think the message should have been we're all at risk. But I don't think that was clear. So I think younger people feel that they don't need the vaccine. They're okay. They don't have all these comorbid conditions. And they'll ride the wave when, the time comes. But I think the risk is that COVID-19, as I put it, does not discriminate. It doesn't know if you're black, you're white, you're young, or old. Once it gets hold to you, it also works differently on different people. Some people get it, they don't have any symptoms. Some people get it, they get real sick. Some people are on their deathbed, and some people transition over. And then there's some who recover, but then they have these now lingering effects. So I think it's not something to be played with. And no matter how we spin and we dice it, I mean, this thing has killed several people across the world. I mean, it's not,
Million.
I don't think all folks came together to create a conspiracy. I mean, this is real. I mean, over 33 million people have been infected. Over 500 million people have died. This is real. So we need to... and
that's just right here in the U.S.
Right, just here in the U.S. So I think it is important that we wake up to realize that this is real. I think we've been fortunate enough that God has endowed the researchers to leverage all the existing knowledge and the government working with private sector to put resources and concentrated time for early discovery of a vaccine. So I think this is a time for us to embrace this and educate ourselves so that we can make the best decision.
Prof, Dr. Sarpong put another cut on this piece. And first of all, thank you. It's the first that I had heard in that in many cases what was happening with social unrest and those messages also added to the pressure of the decisions of people. So it was even those ancillary things that were happening around the vaccine that had an impact on whether people took or didn't take the shot. We hadn't heard that from some of the scientists and doctors that we talked to before.
No, but I was one of the early critics of the vaccination.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Just because it was being pushed on us.
Yeah.
And the methodology in which it was being pushed. But then when I thought about it, I said, well, we get vaccinated.
When you talked to Dr. Ferdinand.
Okay, when I talked to Dr. Ferdinand and a number of others, I thought about the number of immunizations and vaccinations that we take as children that protect us from getting so many of the diseases and some of the things that I've had myself, the measles, the mumps, the chicken pox that I've personally experienced. And I've had the COVID at its earliest onset before they started testing back in February. But I think that at the point we are right now, that is just ignorance for people not to get the shot, and it's ignorance. It ain't got, I'm not gonna sit here and rationalize that black people are not getting the shot because of the Tuskegee experiment. We done been there, done that, talked about it. That ain't it. The shot is free, and black people like free stuff. Now, if we had to pay, that's different. But we like free stuff. And I don't believe that we ought to be given incentives to go get vaccinated. I think the incentive is if you don't get it, you're gonna die. Death is the ultimate incentive. And so at this point, they could walk into any Walgreens, CVS, down there at the convention center. They can go anywhere and get the shot.
H&W
Pharmacy. Anywhere and get it for free. And the fact that they just don't get it, especially young people. Young people don't listen to nothing anyway. We are dealing with emotional fragility when it comes to these young folk. I'm talking.
You like that? You made that term up. You like?
Yeah, I like it because it describes the fragile state that we attempt to rationalize out all of the behavior
for children.
Fragility. They're emotionally fragile. Unable to perform and can't move out your mama house and all of that. So if they don't get it, death is the ultimate incentive. You're gonna die.
Die.
Yeah.
Unwrap that. Unbox that for all.
Well, I think it is true. I think that the vaccine does a couple of things for us. I think the vaccine will prevent individuals from getting real sick, possibly die, and definitely death. It's protective of death. Not taking it, I agree with you, Prof, that you're most likely going to die when you get the vaccine. But I also think that the messaging has to be empowering. I think that's really what it is. I think that beating the victim or stigmatizing the situation is not going to make it better. I think we need to appeal to the intellect of these young people, that they need to pause and really give this some great thought. Because there are folks who usually like pushback when they feel like something is being pushed on them. And you made a very good point that initially you were resistant because you felt this was being pushed on you. But I think once you got the information, you were educated, you were able to have the discourse that you needed and really reflect and give it a deeper thought, you arrived at the right decision to take the vaccine. I think we need to create those forums, those environments, and engage the young folks, not just say, okay, is this or that, but let's have conversation.
I agree with both of you guys. I think too often society dismisses the intellectual capacity of all of our young people instead of putting together or fashioning a message that appeals to their intellect, that reaches them where they are. We're going to go to the lines right now. Dr. Sarpong, very important discussion. DJ, good morning. God bless you, brother. You're on with Dr. Sarpong.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So you want to have an intellectual conversation? Let's have it.
Let's have it.
So first of all, this quote unquote vaccine is not approved by the FDA. Number one, and if it was approved by the FDA, then they would have to essentially pay people for these for all the side effects that's going to happen. And if it was so safe, why hasn't the FDA approved it after all this time, after so many people have gotten the vaccine? Why hasn't the FDA approved it? Because why? Because they're still in the trial phase. We are all essentially experiments because they don't know what's going on years down the line to people, and so we're just all like little experiments. And the thing is like you all talked about it being pushed on you. At what point in time in America have they just been so worried about the health of black people? A bucket of chicken, French fries, for a fact, seriously, that is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. You should run the opposite. When you want to talk about the appealing to the intellect, I think the young people have applied the intellect to this thing, and they've realized that something's not right.
Thank you, DJ.
That's just like the Indians giving the Pilgrims giving the Indians the yellow fever blanket. Right. Something's not right. Be wary of the naked man that gives you his shirt.
So, DJ, I think that we can say that you're not going to take the vaccine.
I wouldn't take the vaccine for $1 million.
Ooh. But if they offer you that, come get me. I'll take it again.
I wouldn't take it for $1 million. Professor said we're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die anyway. And secondly, I think the doctor said that, if you don't get it, you're gonna die. Come on, doctor. You have to put out correct information. There are plenty of people who've gotten the virus without dying, without having any symptoms at all whatsoever. And essentially, what you're asking people to do, that if you're not sick at all, come take this quote unquote vaccine. Because I don't really know if you could really actually call it a vaccine because it has not been approved by the FDA.
Thank you, DJ.
So that may be the wrong thing to say. So come try this clinical trial, and then we'll see what happens later on.
Thank you. Very strong views.
Well, I respect the opinion of the caller and his point that he raises. But one is that I said that the vaccine has been shown to be protective of death.
What about FDA approval?
The FDA approval, it has gotten what they call emergency use approval. So it has been approved. But again, we also have to understand the way these things work. Historically, FDA is a very bureaucratic process.
Slow.
It takes a drug from conception to actually making it on the shelf almost 17 years. And there are certain processes that needs to go through. Now, this is not the first time that FDA has expedited approval of drugs. They did it in the times of the HIV drug when they were looking and a lot of people were dying. So they had to pivot and ask the question, do we have enough evidence now, given the rate at which people were contracting the virus and dying, to really go ahead and release the vaccine? So I think the emergency approval is as good as the approval, but this is just the process that these regulatory organizations...
Dr. Sarpong, first of all, as a respected scientist and historian, someone who's dedicated their life to this, what do you say to in many cases, the charge that DJ said is using African Americans and intellectuals like yourself for something that hasn't been proven? Address that charge, please.
Well, I would say this. We started this kind of work even way before the vaccine. We were doing community forums. We wanted to really understand what was going on in our communities. And I remember one of the pillars in this community, Miss Barbara Major, said something. She was on one of your shows.
Yes.
I think it was July, August. And she said, Doc, when it comes to the vaccine for our people, you guys need to vet this. I was initially reluctant, but I had to educate myself. Most of us were saying, well, we'll wait and see, want to check the data out and so on and so forth. Once you get to a certain point, you've checked the data, it just makes, for me, logical sense to go forth with it. But, there's some people who have very strong beliefs.
Before we go to the lines are lit up.
Some people just ignorant. They ignorant, man. Some people I'm going to say it. They just ignorant because I just told y'all about what you don't get no more. You don't use the iron lung no more, man, because you get a polio vaccination. You don't get when the last time you saw somebody with the chicken pox? Do you know if you get chicken pox, and I read this, as an adult, it can be deathly.
Yes.
As an adult.
Yes.
As a child, it's okay. As an adult, you can die.
Dang.
Do you know you don't get the mumps, the measles, the rubella, because you get man, die. Look, let me tell you something. You tell them argue with their mom because they just ignorant. Yeah. Yeah, I can say that. He might not say that.
You're both professors.
I know, but I'm a different type. I'm a social scientist.
Uptown B. You're
I'm a social
wrong.
scientist.
You're wrong with Prof. and Dr. And the different type of professor, scientist, Dr. Sarpong.
Prof, your own one, man. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, doctor. Thank you for coming and speak to the masses of people. You guys have all, the discussions over the year, past year with COVID-19 has been, beneficial to the community. I think we should be mindful of our megaphone, what we talk about, especially when we can talk. We have the opportunity to speak to others who may not know so much, because you, Professor, you had an opportunity to, like the doctor said, arrive to that
conclusion. Yes,
that,
come to
the
that
right
conclusion.
decision.
Right.
But most people, they don't have that. They don't work around professionals. They work around everyday people.
Great point.
So they don't have that constant influence of people saying, okay, I have a doctor, I have a friend who's a gynecologist, I have a friend who works in this medical field, so on and so forth. They get all the information from one person. So now that you made that pivot, they won't be able to make that pivot like you did. And they'll keep coming to the same brick wall until they have that reinforcement. So it's important that, we speak to our brothers. We talk to all our, in our social clubs and in the barbershops.
Right.
And I do it at the barbershop. I keep reiterating it. They can say what they want, and they think the thing is over. They think the virus is over, it's done. But they got to understand that this thing is out here and it's still dangerous.
B, thank you, man. Wow. Well, man, that's why I love our listening audience. And I think what Uptown B is he's basically saying, we're just saying it's not over. The messaging has not been what it should be. And Prof, he makes a real powerful point. Everybody doesn't have the benefit that we have, just to bring in Dr. Sarpong, to Dr. Ferdinand, to bring many of these experts that have been on our show, where we can get the best intelligence from the most highly respected people. Most folks don't have that opportunity.
Well, that is true, and that's why it's upon us, for us to really get the word out, and not to make it confrontational, but to really make it where we have conversation.
But you can understand DJ's position.
Oh, yeah.
Though, especially is that don't automatically assume that people aren't making an intellectual decision.
Right.
You can't just automatically assume that they're making an emotional decision. Many are making an intelligent decision.
Right. Based on the information.
Based on their information, all that thereof.
Yeah, but I'm telling them.
Right.
I'm giving, and I hear, I love what Uptown B said. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But I am telling you. One, it's my duty, right?
Right.
And I'm not going to tell you all this story about the allegory of the cave, because we've already know it. But it's my duty, once I become enlightened, for me to go back and enlighten others. And I'm telling you right now, my brothers and sisters, that you get vaccinated against a number of different things that will kill you as an adult.
And this is no different.
This is no different. That this can be included along with those vaccinations, and it's no different.
Let's go, James. God bless you, good brother. You're on with Prof. O.T., the early bird, and Dr. Sarpong. James.
Good morning. Uptown B is a cohort of mine. So
yes.
Not surprisingly that I agree 100% with you all. And the young brother Innocent died. I will say this, and I'm going to leave it on the table with this, and y'all do what y'all will with it. But I want this man to sit down and listen to us. Sit down and listen without trying to react and respond. So, man, you know how much FDA-approved stuff is not fit for human consumption that's on your shelves in the stores? I'm going to hang up, man.
Thank you. Dr. Sarpong.
So what was...
James basically said, folk who in many cases are so adamant need to take a moment to sit and listen. And when you're speaking to scientific stuff, you really need to understand that. He said, and he also closed by saying there's a bunch of stuff on ourselves and stuff we consume that's not FDA approved.
Right.
But we still take it.
Right, yeah. And, I had a gentleman, and he was doing it more in a sense of biblical sense, and I saw the little video clip yesterday. And it was really important that it really strike a chord with me. He says when you get on the plane, you don't ask the pilot for his particulars and everything else. You assume he's going to take you, or the team is going to take you to your destination safely. The same thing with the guy who drives the train. So, but I think there's certain things that we begin to question, and it's okay to question. I think we can question.
Nothing wrong with questioning science.
Right, but have an open mind to it.
But we question, and I love that analogy, right? You don't question the condition of the plane, whether or not the plane has enough fuel, whether or not the individuals flying the plane,
whether or not it's qualified.
Whether or not it's qualified. But we have empirical evidence.
Right.
We all know somebody who has died before what we would consider to be their time from having contracted this
COVID,
disease.
no doubt.
We all know somebody. And despite the fact that we see it, feel it, have experienced it, we still deny it. Now, if they won't have a discussion, we ought to discuss why are we in denial about so many things that we know are beneficial to us, but still engage in the harmful behavior.
Yeah, but I think that, I think it's the power of what Dr. Sarpong is doing right now was that, and we've talked about it here before, Prof, the mixed messages, the lack of proper messaging, the cultural discrepancies in how folk were messages, the disrespect for the history, of the myth versus the reality, the conspiracy around race and medicine. It seems like none of that was taken into consideration. And then they found people like you to try to fix it.
Well, yeah, I guess. But some of us wanted to be in the mix.
But you were not early on.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. But I this is what I again said to one of our community folks, and we listen to community because I believe that where lies the problems lies the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one of the things is that we got to live today to fight tomorrow. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we can get into a number of these things and miss the boat because we're talking about life and death here. We're talking about life-changing situation with this virus. I mean, look at what is happening in India now with the new strains. People just passing out on the street and dying.
Yeah.
This is real. So we can't, like I was saying, we're bickering over this and that when people's life is in the balance.
Right.
We need to set the priorities and focus on what is important. Once we get that behind us, we can revisit some things because we don't have the luxury right now to be having those kinds of discussions because of the priority level is low for those
Well,
things.
some of the discussions right now are around kids, 12 to 17, adolescents, early teens. Moderna says this vaccine is 100% safe for kids. How important is it that kids get vaccinated, and will that get us to the herd immunity that we so desperately need?
Well, for herd immunity, we need for every 10 people, 7 to 8 people to have been vaccinated. I think definitely for the older adults, the 12 to 17, where the data and the studies have shown that it's efficacious, it's safe, that I think those individuals need to go have it. I think that makes sense because they're getting other vaccines anyway. Before they go to school, they have all these other things they need to do. Adding, I think, the COVID-19 vaccine is another level of protection because, we can't take the chances and we don't know how this thing. We got to put a lid on this virus. Otherwise, once it mutates, it may set us back. So
as it relates to the race thing, right? The difference between then and now is that we were the only ones. Everybody getting it. When I got vaccinated, they were getting vaccinated too. So it wasn't that they were getting vaccinated by us. When they went to go get the vaccination,
wherever the shot was.
Wherever the shot was at. And it wasn't their people that look like them giving it to them. It's people that look like us giving it to them. And we all were getting from the same batch, from the same place at the same time. So that ought to tell you something in and of itself. Because we know they love them. They may not have always loved us, but we know for certain, Doc, history tells us they love them. They needed us, but they loved them. And so we all were getting the same thing. So, man, we have to, I'm tired of arguing with ignorance. I'm telling y'all that if they got it, we ought to get it. And if you don't get it, then Doc already told you stand a higher chance of not being here.
Then, Doc, what needs to be done? They've discovered scientists and intellectuals and academics like yourself to help this cause. They've engaged me and Prof and folk on television and radio. But still, about 40% of Americans were vaccinated, and a third of our state. So why this? What do we do now for this wall to come down?
Well, I would say to folks that I think that, one, this virus is real. It doesn't discriminate. It affects us all very differently because, some people get it and they show no symptoms, as Prof alluded to earlier. And I think that we all were in prayer for a solution. I believe that we have a solution, which is the vaccine. So it just makes sense for all of us to protect one another. If you don't even think you need it, do it for the next person who might be close to you, who need for you to be protected so that they could be protected. Because you may be okay, but you may carry it to a more vulnerable person. And I think this is really very important, and we have to become each other's keeper. You can't bring your loved one back after they're dead.
But Doc, isn't part, and I know they're not going to want to talk about this part, but I got to ask him.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
Isn't part of herd immunity, doesn't the process involving somebody got to die? The herd has to be called. Part of herd immunity, everybody ain't going to make it through. Isn't that part of the process that we do have to have a certain segment?
Isn't that survival of the fittest, the rules of the jungle?
Part of herd immunity, you have to get vaccinated against it, but they are going to be some of the herd that ain't going to make it.
Well, I think it's going to be.
Isn't that how it works?
Now you're asking a scientist to get in the jungle with you, bro.
Well, I'm asking him, isn't that how herd immunity works? That's the ugly side of herd immunity. That's the ugly side of it.
Well, I think if you look at it,
Doc, he's taking you out the lab now.
Right? Yeah, but I'm really not a lab scientist.
Yeah, right.
But I think the issue is, yes, in all situations, even like people have taken it, people's reaction to the vaccine has been different. Some people don't.
There's always going to be collateral damage.
There's going to be some people who might not make it.
Some of the herd got to die.
But they may die, and some of the herd might die. But the point is that if we don't get herd immunity, then more of the herd is going to die.
Well, maybe the more got to die.
No.
Yeah, I got it. OT. Right. Maybe because more. Let me tell you something. I was in the mall. I could look at people.
No,
I could sense.
Right.
I'm a vaccination profiler.
Right.
And I'm looking around and I'm saying, I know he ain't got no shot.
And
it didn't look like us. I'm saying I know he ain't got the shot.
That's stereotyping.
Well, it is because the Republicans have told the people that it goes against policy for them to get vaccinated. We don't need it.
Yeah, they've made a political ideology and a political position, and we're here talking to Dr. Sarpong about medicine and human nature, and the science around protecting ourselves. And I think the most important, a powerful thing, Doc, that you said, when I talked about the lab, I didn't mean the lab. I mean in terms of intellectuals and academics. That is your lab.
Right.
And I think the most important thing Dr. Sarpong said, Prof, is if you're not going to do it for you, then there's enough science out there for you to do this for someone else.
Right.
Someone that you love. And Doc, we got a minute left. How can people get in touch with you? How can they find out more about this science and what's next?
Okay, so we're working with Tulane, Xavier and Tulane collaborating. We were fortunate enough to get an NIH funding called LA-CEAL. We have a website. It's called LA-CEAL, Halt COVID LA-CEAL.com. So please check our website for additional information. You can look me up at Xavier. I'm at the Center for Minority Health and Health Disparities. And we'll be glad to come to speak to your group, to your church. We're here for the community, and we have to do this together.
Well, anything Prof and I and what Equity Media can do, we stand here and ready. And before you leave, I got to ask you this question. Health disparities, racism in medicine, still Still a real issue here in America?
It is. I mean, I think that COVID-19 blew the lid off to let us know that even though we've made great strides, we still have a long ways to go in addressing health disparities.
Dr. Sarpong, you promised to come back?
Definitely.
Hey, what an opportunity. I had two professors at the same time. Yeah, one scientist and one...
He's a social scientist.
Thank you, Dr. Sarpong.
And one social. And one social scientist.
Thank you very much.
We'll be social and we'll be back right after the break.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather